Blood soaked through Danny Mitchell's jacket as the knife twisted deeper into his shoulder, but his grip on the little girl's wrist never loosened. "Let her go!" he screamed at the three men trying to drag her into the van. He was 17, homeless, and outweighed by 100 pounds. None of that mattered. The girl's terrified eyes locked with his, and Danny made a choice that would change everything. He shoved her toward the motorcycles across the street and threw himself at her attackers, trading his safety for hers without hesitation. He didn't know her father commanded 97 Hell's Angels. He just knew she needed saving, and for once in his worthless life, he could be the one who did it. Subscribe and comment your city. Let's see how far one act of courage can travel. The morning started the way every morning had started for the past 2 years, with Danny Mitchell waking up behind the dumpster of Chen's Asian Market, his stomach cramping from hunger, his back aching from concrete, and his mind already calculating the day's survival. 17 years old and invisible. That's what Phoenix had taught him. He rolled up his sleeping bag, a luxury he'd stolen from a donation bin 6 months ago, and stuffed it into the gap behind the rusted air conditioning unit where no one would find it. His entire life fit in a backpack. 2 t-shirts, 1 pair of jeans, a toothbrush he'd shoplifted from a gas station, and a photograph of his mother that was so worn the edges had turned to fabric. The pepper spray in his pocket was his only weapon. He'd found it in a purse someone left on a bus bench. He'd returned the purse to the address on the driver's license inside, but he'd kept the pepper spray. Street logic. Danny didn't steal from people who couldn't afford it, but he also didn't walk around defenseless. "Danny, you up?" Mrs. Chen's voice cut through the morning stillness. He emerged from behind the dumpster, trying to smooth his hair down with wet fingers. "Yes, ma'am." The elderly Korean woman stood in the back doorway of her market, a Tupperware container in her weathered hands. She was 70-something, barely 5 feet tall, and the only person in Phoenix who looked at Danny like he was human. "Fried rice from last night," she said, thrusting the container at him. "You eat. You too skinny." "Mrs. Chen, you don't have to." "I don't have to nothing. You helped me move boxes yesterday. I pay you with food. This is business." It wasn't business. They both knew it. But Mrs. Chen understood pride, understood that charity killed something inside people like Danny. So they pretended. He did odd jobs. She paid him with food. A transaction between equals. "Thank you," Danny said, his throat tight. She waved him off. "You a good boy, Danny. Too good for streets. You should go to shelter. Get help." "Can't do that, Mrs. Chen." "Why, because you 17? Because social services find you, put you back in system?" Her dark eyes were too knowing. "Sometimes system is better than dying in alley." "I'm not dying." "Not yet." She shook her head. "But winter coming soon. You think about it." She disappeared back into her store, and Danny stood there holding lukewarm fried rice, wondering how the hell she always knew exactly what to say to crack the armor he'd built around himself. He ate sitting on the curb, watching Phoenix wake up. Cars multiplied on the streets. People in clean clothes walked to coffee shops, their biggest worry whether to get a latte or a cappuccino. Danny tried not to hate them. Hate took energy he couldn't afford to waste. The fried rice was gone in 4 minutes. His stomach still felt empty. It always felt empty, but at least the cramping stopped. He spent the morning the way he spent every morning, trying to be useful enough that people would pay him. He helped a woman carry groceries to her car at the Safeway. She gave him $3. He returned a shopping cart for an elderly man. The man gave him $1 and a suspicious look, like Danny might have stolen the cart in the first place. By noon, he had $8 and the familiar weight of invisibility pressing down on his shoulders. That's when he saw the van. Danny was walking past the grocery store, heading toward the library where he could spend the afternoon reading and using the bathroom without getting kicked out, when the black van pulled up to the curb 20 feet ahead of him. Nothing about it screamed danger, just a regular cargo van, dark windows, Arizona plates. But Danny's survival instincts, the ones that had kept him alive for 2 years on the streets, started screaming. The side door opened. A little girl was walking on the sidewalk, maybe 8 years old, blonde ponytail bouncing, completely absorbed in the ice cream cone she was eating. She wore a pink t-shirt with a unicorn on it. 3 men got out of the van. Everything happened fast and slow at the same time. The first man grabbed the girl from behind, one hand clamping over her mouth, the other arm wrapping around her waist. The ice cream cone hit the pavement. The girl's eyes went wide with terror, and even through the hand covering her mouth, Danny heard her muffled scream. The second man opened the van's sliding door wider. The third man scanned the street, looking for witnesses. His eyes passed right over Danny. Invisible. Danny's brain flooded with calculations. 3 grown men, 1 skinny homeless kid. No phone to call 911. No one paying attention. The few pedestrians on the street were too far away, looking at their phones, living in their own worlds. He could walk away. Probably should walk away. This wasn't his fight. Getting involved meant cops, questions, attention, all the things Danny had spent 2 years avoiding. Foster care would find him. They'd put him back in the system, back in homes where... The girl managed to twist her head, her terrified eyes meeting Danny's for 1 split second, and Danny stopped thinking. His hand found the pepper spray in his pocket as his feet started moving. He covered the 20 feet in seconds, coming in from the third man's blind side. "Let her go!" The third man spun around. "Mind your own!" Danny hit him with the pepper spray first, a direct shot to the face. The man screamed, hands flying to his eyes. Danny didn't wait. He drove his shoulder into the man's chest, using momentum to send him sprawling backward into the second man. The first man still had the girl, was trying to drag her toward the van's open door. The girl was fighting now, kicking, twisting, making herself dead weight. "Run when I tell you!" Danny shouted at her. He launched himself at the first man, fingers clawing for the arm wrapped around the girl's waist. The man was bigger, stronger, but Danny had desperation and rage fueling him. He dug his fingernails into the man's forearm, finding pressure points the way his mother had taught him before the drugs took her. The man's grip loosened for just a second. "Run!" The girl twisted free, stumbling, but Danny shoved her toward the street. "Those motorcycles! Run!" She ran. The first man's fist caught Danny in the ribs, driving the air from his lungs. Pain exploded through his chest. Danny tasted blood. He stumbled backward, and the second man was on him, hands grabbing for his throat. Danny brought his knee up hard, connecting with the man's groin. The hands left his throat. He spun, looking for an escape route, but the third man, eyes streaming from the pepper spray but murder in his expression, grabbed Danny's jacket from behind. "You little shit!" Danny twisted, trying to break free, but the third man was too strong. He slammed Danny against the side of the van. Finally's head bounced off metal. Stars exploded across his vision. The first man was advancing now, and Danny saw the knife in his hand. "Should have minded your own business, kid." The knife came in fast, aimed for Danny's stomach. He threw himself sideways, felt the blade slice through his jacket, through his shirt, through skin. Fire erupted in his shoulder. Hot blood poured down his arm. But he didn't let go of the van, didn't fall, didn't stop fighting. "Ghost! Ghost, help!" The girl's scream cut through the chaos. Danny risked a glance toward the motorcycles. The little girl was running toward a massive biker in a leather vest, and behind him... Oh shit. 10 motorcycles. 10 bikers in leather. all turning toward the commotion. The three men saw them too. "Go! Go! Go!" The first man shoved Danny aside, diving for the van's driver's seat. The second and third men scrambled for the sliding door. The engine roared to life. Tires squealed against pavement. The van tore away from the curb, and Danny collapsed. The world tilted sideways. Blood soaked through his jacket, spreading dark and warm. His shoulder felt like someone had shoved a hot poker through it. His vision blurred at the edges. Boots. Heavy boots surrounded him. "Jesus Christ." A deep voice, rough as gravel. "Somebody call." "No. Get Doc." "Tiny, grab the first aid kit from my bike." Hands touched Danny's good shoulder, gentle despite their size. He tried to pull away, but he had no strength left. "Easy, kid, easy. You're safe now." Danny's eyes focused on the man kneeling beside him. Late 40s, maybe 50, gray streaking through his dark hair, weathered face with kind eyes. A leather vest covered in patches, and across the back in bold letters, "Hellsangels, M.C. Phoenix." "The girl," Danny managed through gritted teeth. "Is she?" "She's safe. You saved her." The man, Ghost, the girl had called him Ghost, studied Danny's face. "What's your name, kid?" "Danny." "Danny what?" "Just Danny." Ghost's eyes narrowed, but before he could ask more questions, another biker appeared with a first aid kit. This one was even bigger, 300 pounds at least, with a shaved head and a surprisingly gentle expression. "Knife wound," Ghost said. "Deep, looks like. Danny, we need to get you to a hospital." "No." The word came out harder than Danny intended. "No hospitals." "Kid, you're bleeding." "I said no." Ghost and the big biker exchanged a look. Understanding passed between them, the kind of understanding that said they'd both seen people running from something. "Okay," Ghost said slowly. "No hospital. But Doc's gonna look at that wound, and you're not arguing. Clear?" Danny didn't have the energy to argue anyway. The edges of his vision were going dark. He tried to focus on Ghost's face, tried to stay present, but the blood loss was pulling him under. "Hey, hey!" Ghost's hand patted his cheek. "Stay with me, Danny. Tiny, get him on my bike. We're taking him to the clubhouse." Ghost. The big biker, Tiny, which was the most ironic name Danny had ever heard, hesitated. "We don't know this kid. Could be running from—" "I don't care what he's running from. He took a knife from my daughter." Ghost's voice went hard as steel. "That makes him protected. You got a problem with that?" Tiny shook his head. "No, sir." "Then move." Massive arms lifted Danny like he weighed nothing. The world spun. Danny felt himself being positioned on a motorcycle, Ghost's arms supporting him from behind. "My backpack," Danny mumbled. "Behind the dumpster. Chen's Market. Everything I have." "I'll get it." A woman's voice, firm and competent. Danny's blurry vision caught a glimpse of someone with dark hair and fierce eyes. "Which dumpster, sweetheart?" "Asian Market, 2 blocks north, behind the AC unit." "Got it. Ghost, go. I'll meet you at the clubhouse." The motorcycle's engine roared to life beneath Danny. He'd never been on a bike before. The vibration traveled through his body, somehow grounding him even as consciousness tried to slip away. "Hold on, kid," Ghost said in his ear. "Just hold on." The bike moved, and Phoenix blurred past. Danny's shoulders screamed with every bump, every turn. Blood soaked through his jacket, dripped onto Ghost's hands gripping the handlebars. Somewhere in the haze of pain, Danny heard other motorcycles. The whole group was moving together, a protective convoy surrounding him. For the first time in 2 years, Danny wasn't alone. and that terrified him more than the knife wound. They pulled up to a building that looked like a fortress. Concrete walls, minimal windows, motorcycles parked in neat rows. A sign above the door, Hell's Angels, MC, Phoenix Chapter. Hans helped Danny off the bike. His legs didn't want to support him. Tiny caught him before he could fall. "I got you, little man. I got you." Inside was all wood and leather, and the smell of motor oil and cigarettes. Danny's boots scraped across concrete floors. They guided him to a back room, laid him on a table that felt like it had been through 100 bar fights. "Somebody grab Rebecca," Ghost ordered. "Tell her Sarah's fine, but we got a situation." A gray-haired man appeared, weathered face deeply lined, eyes sharp and assessing. He wore the same leather vest as the others, but his hands moved with medical precision as he cut away Danny's jacket and shirt. "Well, shit," the man said, examining the wound. Knife went deep, but it missed anything vital. Lucky kid. "Doesn't feel lucky," Danny gasped. "You will when you're alive tomorrow." The man, Doc, Danny assumed, pulled out medical supplies from a bag that looked military grade. "This is gonna hurt. I can give you something for the pain, but it'll knock you out." "No." Danny's hand shot out, grabbing Doc's wrist. "No drugs." Understanding flickered in Doc's eyes. "Seen too much of what drugs can do?" Danny didn't answer. Didn't need to. "All right then. But you're gonna want to bite down on something." Tiny handed him a leather belt. Danny put it between his teeth, tasted old leather and salt, and nodded. Doc worked fast and efficient. The needle piercing Danny's skin felt like being stabbed all over again. The thread pulling through flesh made Danny's whole body go rigid. Sweat poured down his face. He bit down on the belt so hard his jaw ached, but he didn't scream. Wouldn't give them that. "Brave kid," Doc muttered, cleaning the wound. "Stupid as hell, but brave." "Saved my daughter," Ghost said from somewhere behind Danny's head. "That's not stupid. That's honor. Honor gets you killed on the streets." "He's not on the streets anymore." Danny's eyes found Ghost through the haze of pain. The man stood with his arms crossed, expression unreadable, but something in his stance suggested a decision had been made. "What?" Danny managed around the belt. "You heard me. You're not going back out there." "You don't!" Danny spit out the belt. "You don't know anything about me. I could be a criminal. It could be dangerous." "Are you?" "No, but then we're done talking about it." Ghost leaned against the wall, his eyes never leaving Danny's face. "You took a knife for a little girl you didn't know. You pepper-sprayed 3 grown men without hesitating. You refused a hospital even though you were bleeding out because you're running from something. I'm guessing foster care based on your age and the way you reacted. And you've been living rough long enough that you've got that look." "What look?" "The look that says you're used to pain, used to being invisible, used to no one giving a damn whether you live or die." Ghost's voice softened just slightly. "I know that look because I wore it for 5 years when I was your age, and someone gave me a chance, pulled me off the streets, gave me a family." Danny's throat went tight. "I don't need charity." "Good, because this isn't charity." Ghost pushed off the wall, came to stand beside the table where Doc was bandaging Danny's shoulder. "This is payment for a debt. You saved my daughter's life. I protect what's mine, and I pay my debts. Right now, you're both." "I don't understand." "You will." Ghost looked at Doc. "He gonna live?" "Yeah, but he needs rest, antibiotics, proper food. Kid's malnourished, and probably hasn't seen a doctor in years." "We'll fix that." Ghost's attention returned to Danny. "Here's the deal. You stay here, in the clubhouse. We got a spare room, nothing fancy, but it's got a bed and a lock on the door. You stay until that shoulder heals. After that, we talk about what comes next. You don't want to stay? You're free to go. But not until Doc clears you. Clear? Danny wanted to argue, wanted to run. Every instinct screamed that accepting help meant weakness, meant vulnerability, meant eventually being hurt. But his shoulder was on fire. His body was exhausted. And for the first time since his mother died, someone was offering him safety without conditions. Why? The word came out broken. Why are you doing this? Ghost was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight, the kind that came from lived experience. Because 5 years before I became Ghost, I was a kid named Marcus Reynolds who lived behind a grocery store in Tucson. I was 17, just like you. I was invisible, just like you. And a man named Bull, president of the Tucson chapter, he saw me steal food from a dumpster. Could have called the cops, should have called the cops. Instead, he bought me dinner and asked me one question. You want to keep living like this, or you want to try something different? Danny's eyes stung. He blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall. I chose different, Ghost continued, and it saved my life. So I'm asking you the same question Bull asked me. You want to keep living behind dumpsters, Danny? Or you want to try something different? The door burst open before Danny could answer. A woman rushed in, dark hair flying, face pale with fear. Behind her came the little girl, Sarah, Danny's brain supplied, still in her unicorn shirt but now clinging to the woman's hand. Where is he? The woman demanded. Where's the boy who? Her eyes found Danny on the table, blood-soaked and bandaged, and she stopped dead. Oh my God. Sarah pulled free from her mother's grip and ran to the table. Before anyone could stop her, she wrapped her small arms around Danny's good shoulder, burying her face against his chest. Thank you, she sobbed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. They were going to take me, and you saved me, and you got hurt, and... Hey, Danny's good arm came up automatically, awkwardly patting the little girl's back. Hey, it's okay. You're safe now. Because of you. The woman, Rebecca, Danny realized, came closer, tears streaming down her face. She didn't try to pull Sarah away. Instead, she reached out and took Danny's hand, the one that wasn't supporting her daughter. I'm Rebecca Reynolds, she said, voice shaking. Sarah's mother, Ghost's wife. And I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. I'm Rebecca. She squeezed his hand. And yes, I do. I owe you my daughter's life. How old are you, sweetheart? 17? Where are your parents? Danny's jaw tightened. Dead. Mom's been gone 2 years. Never knew my dad. And you've been on the streets since then? He nodded. Rebecca's eyes flashed to Ghost, some wordless communication passing between them. She turned back to Danny, and when she spoke, her voice was fierce as steel. Not anymore. You understand me? You're staying here, with us. You're not going back out there. Your husband already said, I'm not talking about the clubhouse. Rebecca pulled Sarah back gently, but kept hold of Danny's hand. I'm talking about our home. We have a guest room. It's yours for as long as you need it. I can't. Yes, you can. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving smudges of tears and ice cream. You're my hero. Heroes should have houses. Something cracked open in Danny's chest. Something he'd kept sealed shut for 2 years. The tears he'd been fighting broke through, hot and unwanted, streaming down his face. I don't even know you people, he said, hating how his voice broke. Why would you do this for me? Ghost came to stand beside his wife, his hand resting on Sarah's head. His expression was gentle, understanding. "Because someone did it for me," he said simply. "And because you're the kind of person who takes a knife for a stranger's kid. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." Doc cleared his throat. "Hate to interrupt the moment, but the kid needs rest, and I need to get antibiotics in him before infection sets in." "Right." Rebecca released Danny's hand reluctantly. "You rest. We'll be here when you wake up." They started to file out. Ghost, Rebecca, Sarah, the other bikers who'd been watching from the doorway. But at the threshold, Ghost turned back. "Danny, that question I asked you. Think about it. Because tomorrow, I'm gonna want an answer." The door closed, leaving Danny alone with Doc and his thoughts. He lay on the table while Doc administered antibiotics and pain medication that wasn't quite strong enough to knock him out, just enough to take the edge off. His shoulder throbbed in time with his heartbeat. His ribs ached where he'd been punched. His head hurt where it had bounced off the van. And underneath all that pain was something else. Something unfamiliar and terrifying. Hope. "Doc?" Danny said quietly. "Yeah, kid?" "How long have you been with the club?" 23 years. Got out of the military, couldn't adjust to civilian life. Ghost's father, the man who founded this chapter, he gave me a purpose. Gave me a family when my real one wanted nothing to do with me." "So it's real? What Ghost said about them helping people?" Doc's weathered face creased into a smile. "It's real. This club, we're not angels. We've all got pasts, we've all made mistakes, but we protect our own. We help people who need it, and we never, ever turn our backs on someone with honor." "I don't have honor. I'm just a homeless kid." "You threw yourself at 3 armed men to save a child. You took a knife wound rather than let them take her. You refused medical help even while bleeding out because you were more afraid of the system than death." Doc shook his head. "Kid, you've got more honor in your little finger than most men have in their whole bodies. You just don't recognize it yet." Danny closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling at him. "What if I'm not what they think I am? What if I disappoint them?" "Then you disappoint them. But at least you'll do it with a roof over your head and food in your stomach." Doc's hand rested briefly on Danny's good shoulder. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's gonna come whether you're ready or not." Sleep took Danny quickly, dragging him down into darkness. But for the first time in 2 years, it wasn't the darkness of a dirty alley behind a dumpster. It was the darkness of safety, of warmth, of possibility. And in his dreams, his mother smiled at him and said, "I'm proud of you, baby. So proud." When Danny woke, sunlight was streaming through a window he didn't recognize. He wasn't on the table anymore. Someone had moved him to an actual bed, with actual sheets, in an actual room. His backpack sat on a chair in the corner, exactly where he'd told that woman it would be. His shoulder screamed when he tried to sit up. He fell back against the pillows, gasping. The door opened. Ghost appeared, carrying a tray with toast, scrambled eggs, and orange juice. "Doc said you'd try to move too fast," Ghost said, setting the tray on the nightstand. "Told me to tell you that if you rip those stitches, he'll personally kick your ass." Noted. Ghost pulled the chair closer to the bed, sat down like he had all the time in the world. "You thought about my question?" Danny studied the man's face, looking for deception, for the catch, for the thing that would make this all make sense. He found nothing but patience and genuine concern. "Why me?" Danny asked. "You don't know me. I could be anybody. You're somebody who saved my daughter. That's all I need to know. What if I say no? What if I take off as soon as I can walk? Then I'll make sure you have money, food, and a phone number to call if you change your mind." Ghost's expression didn't change. "But I'll also worry about you every day. Wonder if you're eating. Wonder if you're safe. And Rebecca will probably send Tiny to check on you weekly, which will make you feel stalked. Despite everything, Danny almost smiled. She seems determined. She's a mother. It's what they do. Ghost leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Look, I'm not gonna blow sunshine up your ass. Living here won't be easy. We got rules. We got expectations. You'll have to earn your place, pull your weight. But you'll be safe. You'll be fed. And you'll have people who give a damn whether you live or die. That's more than you got right now. Danny's throat went tight again. I don't know how to be part of a family. Mine fell apart a long time ago. Neither did I. Bull taught me. I'll teach you. And probably screw it up a bunch along the way, but we'll figure it out together. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility. One condition, Danny said finally. Name it. I'm not charity. I work for what I get. I don't care what it is, cleaning, mechanical work, whatever. But I earn my keep. Deal? Ghost's smile was genuine, reaching his eyes. Deal. And for the record, we could use help in the garage. You know anything about motorcycles? No, but I can learn. Good answer. Ghost stood, headed for the door. Eat, rest. Tomorrow we'll talk about getting you checked out properly, getting you into some programs. Maybe even getting you that GED Bull made me get. Ghost? The man turned back. Thank you, Danny said, the words feeling inadequate and enormous at the same time. Don't thank me yet, kid. Thank me when you've been here a month and realize half the guys snore like chainsaws and Tiny eats all the good cereal. The door closed behind him and Danny was alone again. But this time, alone didn't feel lonely. It felt like the quiet before something began. He picked at the eggs, forcing himself to eat slowly even though his stomach demanded he inhale everything. The orange juice was cold and sweet and tasted like hope. Through the window he could hear motorcycles starting up, male voices calling to each other, the sounds of a community in motion. His backpack sat on the chair holding everything he owned, which wasn't much. But maybe that was okay. Maybe having less made room for more. Danny's hand found the photograph of his mother in his pocket. He pulled it out, studied her smiling face. I think I'm gonna try something different, Mom, he whispered. I hope that's okay. The photograph didn't answer, but Danny imagined it did. Imagined she was proud of him for being brave enough to save Sarah, brave enough to accept help, brave enough to hope. His shoulder throbbed, reminding him of the price he'd paid. But looking around the small, clean room with sunlight streaming through the window, Danny thought maybe, just maybe, it was worth it. Outside, Ghost's voice carried through the window. Tiny, I need you to make a supply run. Kid's gonna need clothes, toiletries, the works. And get him some books. Rebecca said she saw him reading behind the library last week. On it, boss. What size you think? Small everything. Kid's basically held together with hope and stubbornness. Danny closed his eyes, a real smile touching his lips for the first time in months. Hope and stubbornness. Yeah. That sounded about right. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. 3 days later, Danny stood in Ghost's office at the clubhouse, his shoulders still bandaged, but the pain had dulled to a manageable ache. Detective Linda Torres sat across from Ghost's desk, her dark eyes kind but professional as she clicked her pen repeatedly. Danny, I need you to understand something, she said gently. Those men who tried to take Sarah, we arrested 2 of them at the hospital. The third one got away, but we identified him from traffic cameras. They're part of something much bigger than a random kidnapping attempt. Danny's good hand gripped the arm of his chair. What do you mean bigger? Human trafficking ring. Been operating in Phoenix for at least 2 years. We've been building a case, but they're careful. professional. Torres leaned forward. The thing is, Danny, when we questioned the two we caught, they said something interesting. They said a homeless kid interfered with their operation, and when we showed them your photo from the hospital, they got real quiet. Scared even. Ghost's voice cut in, hard as granite. Why would they be scared of a 17-year-old kid? Because, Torres said, pulling out a folder, we think Danny might have witnessed other operations without realizing it. Living on the streets, moving through areas most people avoid, he would have been invisible to them. But he would have seen things. Danny's mind raced backward through 2 years of survival. The van that was always parked in the same alley on Tuesday nights. The men who met behind the abandoned warehouse where he sometimes slept. The girls who looked wrong, too young, too scared, being led into buildings that should have been empty. "Oh God," he whispered. "I saw them. Multiple times. I just thought it was drug deals or something. I stayed out of the way." "That probably saved your life," Torres said. "But now that you've actively interfered, now that you've been identified as a witness, you're a threat to their operation." Ghost stood up so fast his chair hit the wall. "You're telling me these bastards are gonna come after him?" "I'm telling you it's a possibility we need to take seriously." Torres's expression was grim. "The third man who got away? His name is Vincent Mora. He's muscle for the organization, and he's got a reputation for cleaning up loose ends." Danny felt ice flood his veins. "So what do I do? Run? Hide? Go back to the streets where at least I knew how to disappear?" "No." Ghost's voice was absolute. "You stay right here, where we can protect you." "Ghost, I appreciate everything you've done, but I can't bring this kind of danger to your family." "Too late. You're already family." Ghost turned to Torres. "What about protective custody?" Torres shook her head. "For how long? We don't have enough evidence yet to bring down the whole organization. It could take months, maybe longer. And foster care isn't equipped to handle this kind of threat. Danny would be moved around, exposed, vulnerable." "Then he stays with us," Ghost said flatly. "We've handled worse than some trafficking ring's hired muscle." Torres studied Ghost for a long moment. "Officially, I can't condone a motorcycle club providing witness protection. Unofficially, I grew up in this neighborhood. I know what the hellsangels really do here. And I know Danny's safer with you than anywhere else the system could put him." She stood, handed Ghost a card. "This is my direct line. Anything suspicious, you call me immediately. And Danny?" She turned to him. "I need you to write down everything you remember seeing over the past 2 years. Locations, times, descriptions, anything that might help us build our case." "I can do that." "Good kid." Torres headed for the door, paused. "Ghost? Keep him alive. He's the best witness we've got." The door closed behind her, and silence filled the office like water rising. Danny couldn't look at Ghost. "You should let me go. This isn't your problem." "Shut up." Danny's head snapped up. Ghost was staring at him with an expression that was half frustration, half something that looked like fear. "You don't get to decide what my problems are," Ghost said. "You saved my daughter. That makes you mine to protect. End of discussion." "But," I said, "end of discussion." Ghost moved around the desk, sat on the edge directly in front of Danny. "Look at me, kid." Danny forced himself to meet Ghost's eyes. 30 years ago, a man named Bull told me the same thing I'm telling you now. He said, "You're family now, Marcus. And family doesn't run when things get hard. Family fights." I didn't understand it then. Kept trying to leave, kept thinking I was bringing him trouble. You know what he did? Danny shook his head. He had 2 members follow me every time I tried to run. Not to force me back, just to make sure I was safe. took me 6 months to realize I wasn't a burden. I was a brother. Ghost's hand landed on Danny's good shoulder. So I'm going to tell you what Bull told me. You can be scared. You can be angry. You can even try to run if it makes you feel better. But we're not letting you go. Clear? Danny's throat worked, trying to swallow past the emotion choking him. I don't know how to do this. How to be someone people protect. You learn. Same way you learned how to survive on the streets. One day at a time. A knock on the door interrupted them. Tiny stuck his massive head in. Boss, Rebecca's here with clothes for the kid, and Sarah made him a card. Send them in. Rebecca entered carrying shopping bags, Sarah bouncing beside her, holding a piece of construction paper covered in glitter and stickers. The little girl ran straight to Danny, thrusting the card at him. I made you a thank you card. Look, that's you with your cape, and that's me being saved, and those are the bad guys getting arrested. Danny took the card with shaking hands. The stick figures were crude but unmistakable. A tall figure with a cape standing between a small figure and 3 dark figures. Red glitter marked the hero's shoulder where Danny had been stabbed. At the top, in Sarah's careful 3rd-grade handwriting, My hero, Danny. It's perfect, Danny managed. Thank you, Sarah. You're welcome. Mommy says you're going to live with us for a while. Is that true? Rebecca shot Ghost a look that said they'd discussed this at length. Sarah, honey, Danny's staying at the clubhouse for now. But why? We have that guest room that nobody uses, and I could show him my stuffed animals, and we could watch movies and… Sarah. Ghost's tone was gentle but firm. Danny needs to be here where all the brothers can help keep him safe. Remember what we talked about? About the bad men who might be looking for him? Sarah's face fell. Oh, right. Because he saved me, and now they're mad at him. Yeah, sweetheart, but we're going to keep him safe, I promise. Sarah turned to Danny, her expression suddenly fierce despite her 8 years. Don't worry. My daddy's the toughest person in the whole world. Nobody's going to hurt you. Danny felt something crack in his chest. I believe you. Rebecca set the shopping bags on Ghost's desk. I got you basics. Jeans, t-shirts, underwear, socks, toiletries. I guessed on sizes, so if anything doesn't fit, we'll exchange it. Oh, and I got you these. She pulled out a pack of composition notebooks and pens. Ghost mentioned you used to read at the library. I thought maybe you'd like to write, or draw, or just have something to do. Danny stared at the notebooks like they were made of gold. Thank you. You didn't have to. I wanted to. Rebecca's smile was warm. Besides, Sarah insisted we get you something useful. She takes her hero worship very seriously. Mom! Sarah's face went red. I don't worship him. I just think he's really brave and cool and awesome and… She stopped, realizing she wasn't helping her case. Okay, maybe I worship him a little. Despite everything, Danny laughed. It felt strange, like using muscles he'd forgotten he had. Ghost's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. Rebecca, take Sarah to the main room. Danny, you stay here. Rebecca recognized the tone. She gathered Sarah quickly, but not before Sarah squeezed Danny's good hand. I'm glad you're here, she whispered. When they were gone, Ghost showed Danny the phone screen. A text from an unknown number. Tell the kid to keep his mouth shut if he knows what's good for him. Torres needs to see this, Ghost said, already dialing. Danny's hands had gone cold. They found me fast. They were always gonna find you. This city's not that big, and we're not exactly subtle. Ghost's call connected. Torres, we got a problem. Yeah, I'm sending it now. He forwarded the message, then made another call. Hammer, I need a church meeting. Full patch. 20 minutes. Danny had been in the clubhouse long enough to know that church meant serious club business. What's going to happen? We're going to vote on how to handle this threat. And Danny? Ghost's eyes were hard. I need you to be honest with me. Everything you saw on the streets, everything you remember. Can you do that? Yes. 20 minutes later, Danny sat in a back room surrounded by 15 Hell's Angels in full colors. The energy was different from before, focused, intense, dangerous. These weren't just bikers. They were men preparing for war. Hammer, the sergeant-at-arms, spoke first. So let me get this straight. We got a 17-year-old kid that some trafficking ring wants dead because he saved Ghost's daughter and might have witnessed their operations? That's the situation, Ghost confirmed. And this kid's got no family, no protection, nowhere to go except back to the streets where they'll find him in about 5 minutes? Correct. Hammer looked at Danny, his scarred face unreadable. Kid, what did you see exactly? Danny took a breath and started talking. He described the van that appeared every Tuesday night in the alley behind the warehouse, the rotation of different girls who were always young, always scared, the well-dressed man who showed up in expensive cars to meet with rougher-looking guys, the warehouse itself, which should have been condemned, but had lights on at odd hours. How long did this go on? Asked Preacher, the club chaplain. At least a year, maybe longer. I avoided that alley on Tuesdays after a while. Smart survival instinct, Tiny rumbled. But it means you got a year's worth of observations that could hurt their operation. Doc leaned forward. The question is, do we wait for the FBI to build their case, or do we handle this ourselves? We don't handle anything that puts the club at risk, Ghost said firmly. But we do protect our own. Danny's one of us now. That means he gets full protection until this is resolved. A younger member Danny didn't know spoke up. No disrespect, Ghost, but we talking about 24/7 protection for a kid we just met? That's a lot of resources for someone who's not even a prospect. The room went silent. Danny felt heat rise in his face. The guy was right. Why should they risk everything for him? Ghost stood slowly, his presence filling the room. Anyone else feel that way? That Danny hasn't earned our protection? No one spoke. Good, because let me remind you what this kid did. He saw 3 armed men kidnapping a little girl. He could have walked away, should have walked away. He had no connection to her, no reason to get involved. But he didn't. He threw himself at professional criminals without hesitation. He took a knife wound to his shoulder. He refused medical treatment because he was more afraid of the system than bleeding out. And when he woke up in our care, his first words weren't "thank you" or "what's in it for me." They were, "Is the girl safe?" Ghost's eyes swept the room. That's the kind of character we claim to value. Honor, courage, protecting the innocent. So if we turn our backs on Danny now because it's inconvenient, what the hell does that say about us? Hammer nodded slowly. Ghost's right. Kid's got more balls than most men I've met. I vote we protect him. Seconded, Tiny said. One by one, the members voted. Every single hand went up. Unanimous, Ghost said. Danny stays under club protection until the threat is neutralized. Hammer, set up a rotation. I want eyes on him 24/7. Preacher, reach out to our contacts in law enforcement. See what we can learn about this trafficking ring. Doc, make sure the kid's medical care is handled. Tiny, your primary protection during the day. What about me? Danny asked. What do I do? Ghost turns to him. You write down everything you remember, like Torres said. Every detail, every face, every vehicle. And you start training. Training for what? Life. You're gonna get your GED. Gonna learn about motorcycles. Gonna put on some healthy weight so you don't look like a strong wind could break you. Gonna figure out what you want to be when you grow up. Ghost's expression softened slightly. Gonna learn how to be part of a family. The meeting dissolved, members heading to their assigned tasks. Danny sat there, overwhelmed by the reality that 15 dangerous men had just unanimously voted to protect him. Tiny approached, his massive hand gentle on Danny's shoulder. Come on, little man. Let's get you settled in your room, then we'll start going through your memories. The more details we can give Torres, the faster this gets resolved. They walked through the clubhouse, past the main room where several members were watching a football game, past the kitchen where someone was making coffee, to the small room that was apparently Danny's now. His backpack was there, but so were the shopping bags from Rebecca. The bed had fresh sheets. Someone had put a lamp on the nightstand. It's not much, Tiny said, but it's safe. Door locks from the inside, windows reinforced, and I'm in the room next door if you need anything. Danny sat on the bed, the mattress soft compared to concrete. Why are you all doing this? Tiny lowered himself into the room's only chair, which creaked under his weight. You really want to know? Yeah. Because most of us were you once. Maybe not homeless, but broken in some way. I was a fat kid who got bullied until I tried to kill myself at 15. Ghost was a runaway. Hammer was in a gang, heading for prison or death. Doc had PTSD so bad from the military he couldn't hold a job. Preacher lost his faith after watching his unit get blown up in Iraq. Tiny's eyes were distant, remembering. The club gave us purpose. Gave us brothers who understood what it meant to be damaged and trying to heal. We've all been saved by someone who didn't have to give a damn about us. So when we see a kid like you, who's got nothing, but still finds it in himself to be brave, hell, that's easy. That's just us paying forward what was given to us. I'm not special, Danny said quietly. I just did what anyone would do. That's where you're wrong, little man. Most people would have kept walking. You didn't. That makes you exactly the kind of person this club was built to protect. Tiny stood, heading for the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we start getting your life together. And Danny? Stop trying to run. We're faster than you, and Hammer's a damn good tracker. Danny smiled despite himself. Noted. Alone in his room, Danny pulled out the notebooks Rebecca had bought him. He opened the first one, uncapped a pen, and started writing. Every detail he could remember about the trafficking operations he'd witnessed. Dates, times, descriptions. The well-dressed man's car, a black Mercedes with tinted windows. The warehouse address. The girls' faces. Because even though he'd tried not to look, he'd seen their fear. He wrote for 3 hours, filling page after page with information that might save lives. Information that also made him a target. His shoulder ached, his hand cramped, but he kept writing. Around midnight, he heard motorcycles pulling up outside. Voices, low and urgent. His door opened without knocking. Tiny, his face grim. Get up, we got a situation. Danny's heart hammered. What kind of situation? The kind where Vincent Mora was spotted 2 blocks from here, watching the clubhouse. Tiny handed Danny a jacket. Ghost wants everyone in the main room. Now. The main room was crowded with every club member in Phoenix, all armed, all focused. Ghost stood at the center, his phone pressed to his ear. Yeah, Torres, I understand that. But he's circling my clubhouse like a damn vulture. What am I supposed to... He listened, jaw tight. Fine. We'll sit tight. But if he steps foot on this property, we're defending it. He ended the call, addressed the room. Torres has units in the area, but they can't arrest Mora for being on a public street. We're on lockdown until sunrise. No one in, no one out. Danny, you're staying in the center of the building, away from windows. Danny felt every eye on him. I'm sorry, I should have just... Should have just what? Hammer cut in. Died in that alley? Let Sarah get taken? Don't insult what you did by apologizing for it. Hammer's right, Preacher added. You did the right thing. The consequences aren't your fault. Ghost pulled Danny aside, his voice low. Listen to me. These men, they're not mad at you. They're mad at the situation. There's a difference. You understand? Danny nodded, not trusting his voice. Good. Now here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna sit here, stay alert, and wait this out. Torres has people watching Mora. If he makes a move, they'll grab him. If he doesn't, he'll eventually leave and we'll reassess. Either way, you're safe. Clear? Clear. The night stretched on. Members rotated watch positions. Someone ordered pizza. Sarah and Rebecca showed up despite Ghost's protests, Rebecca insisting that if her family was in danger, she was facing it with them. Sarah fell asleep on a couch, her head on Danny's good shoulder. He sat frozen, afraid to move and wake her. She trusts you, Rebecca said softly, sitting beside them. That's not a small thing. Sarah's been nervous around men since the kidnapping attempt, but with you, she feels safe. I'm just a kid myself, Danny whispered. You're her hero. That's different. Rebecca studied his face. Danny, can I ask you something personal? Sure. When's the last time you felt safe? The question hit harder than Danny expected. He thought back through the years. Foster homes where he'd slept with a chair against his door. Streets where he'd never fully relaxed. Constant vigilance that had become his baseline. I don't remember, he admitted. Then let me tell you something. Safety isn't the absence of danger. It's the presence of people who'll stand between you and that danger. Rebecca's hand covered his. You have that now, whether you believe it or not. At 3 a.m., Ghost's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression gradually relaxing. Understood. Thanks, Torres. He addressed the room. Mora left the area. Torres's people followed him to a motel on the east side. They've got eyes on him now. Threat level's down, but we're staying alert. The tension in the room eased slightly. Some members headed home. Others crashed on couches and floors, creating a protective circle around Danny and the Reynolds family. Danny didn't sleep. He watched these men, these strangers who'd become his defenders, and tried to understand how his life had turned this completely upside down in less than a week. Dawn came slowly, painting the clubhouse windows gold. Sarah woke up, confused about where she was, until she saw Danny. Did the bad man come? She asked, her voice small. No, sweetheart, Ghost said, scooping her up. And even if he did, he wouldn't have gotten past us. Sarah's arms wrapped around her father's neck, but her eyes stayed on Danny. Are you okay? I'm okay, Danny promised. Good, because you're supposed to come to dinner at our house on Sunday. Mommy's making pot roast. Danny looked at Rebecca, who smiled. Standing invitation. Every Sunday, family dinner. You're family now, which means you're coming. Ghost caught Danny's eye over Sarah's head, mouthed the words, Don't argue. Danny didn't have the energy to argue, anyway. I'd like that. Thank you. As the morning progressed, members filtered out to their regular lives, jobs, families, responsibilities. Tiny stayed, as did Hammer and Preacher, the core protection team. Doc appeared with breakfast and antibiotics. How's the shoulder? Hurts less than yesterday. Good. Let me check those stitches. While Doc examined the wound, Torres called with an update. The FBI had raided the warehouse Danny had described, found evidence of trafficking operations, Holding cells, restraints, documentation. Vincent Mora's fingerprints were all over it. "They're issuing a warrant for his arrest," Torres told Ghost over speakerphone. "Multiple charges, enough to put him away for life. Danny's testimony will be crucial, but the physical evidence is strong." Danny felt relief and terror in equal measure. Testifying meant facing these men in court. It meant being visible, vulnerable, exposed. "When?" he asked. "Not for months. These cases take time to build. But Danny, this is good news. It means we're taking down the entire operation, not just the small players." After the call ended, Ghost pulled Danny aside again. "You're gonna need a lawyer, someone to represent you through the legal process. I've got a guy, former prosecutor, knows how to protect witnesses." "I can't afford clubs handling it. Before you argue, this benefits us too. The stronger your case, the faster these bastards go away. It's enlightened self-interest." Danny recognized the lie for what it was. Another act of kindness disguised as practicality. But he was learning to accept help, even when it terrified him. "Thank you," he said simply. "Stop thanking me and start living," Ghost replied. "That's the real thanks." That afternoon, Tiny took Danny to the garage to start learning about motorcycles. The mechanical work was soothing, logical in a way Danny's life hadn't been in years. Tiny explained each part, each function, his massive hands surprisingly delicate with the tools. "You're a natural," Tiny said, watching Danny carefully clean a carburetor. "Got good instincts for the work." "I like that it makes sense. You do this, this happens. Clear cause and effect." "Unlike people." "Yeah." Tiny set down his wrench, fixed Danny with a serious look. "People are harder than engines, little man. But they're also more worthwhile. Engines don't care about you. People do. Some people. The right people. And you found them." Tiny's smile was gentle. "I know it's scary. I know you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, for us to decide you're too much trouble. But here's the thing about this club. We don't make decisions lightly. When we say you're family, we mean it. For life." Danny's hands stilled on the carburetor. "What if I mess up?" "Then you mess up. Family forgives. That's what makes it family." The simplicity of it was almost painful. Danny had spent so long believing he was disposable that one mistake would mean abandonment. The idea that he could fail and still be valued was foreign territory. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "None of us did. You learn by doing, by showing up, by trusting even when it's terrifying." Tiny's hand landed on Danny's good shoulder, and by accepting that maybe, just maybe, you deserve good things. That night, Danny lay in his bed at the clubhouse, his notebook open beside him. He'd filled 3 notebooks with memories, details, observations that might save dozens of lives. His shoulder throbbed despite the pain medication. Outside, he could hear Hammer and another member on patrol, their voices low and watchful. He was safe. He was fed. He was protected. And for the first time since his mother died, Danny Mitchell allowed himself to believe that maybe his life wasn't over. Maybe it was just beginning. He picked up his pen and wrote one more entry, this one for himself. Day 7. Still here. Still alive. Still learning that family might be real after all. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The trafficking case would progress. Vincent Mora was still out there. The danger was real and present. But tonight, Danny slept in a bed with a locked door and brothers standing guard. Tonight, he dreamed of his mother smiling. Tonight, he was home. 2 weeks crawled by with Danny living in a strange limbo between safety and siege. He'd settled into a routine at the clubhouse, mornings in the garage with Tiny learning mechanics, Afternoons writing testimony for Torres. Evenings studying for his GED with preacher's help. But the threat hung over everything like smoke that never cleared. Vincent Mora remained at large despite the warrant. The trafficking ring had gone underground, their operations disrupted, but not destroyed. And Danny knew from Torres's tight expression during her weekly visits that something bigger was brewing. He was in the garage on a Thursday afternoon, elbow deep in a transmission rebuild, when Ghost's phone rang. Danny had learned to read Ghost's face over the past 2 weeks, and what he saw now made his stomach drop. "When?" Ghost said into the phone, his voice deadly calm. "How long ago?" "No, don't move her. I'm sending Hammer and 6 brothers. Nobody gets within 50 feet of that house." He ended the call and turned to find every member in the garage already on their feet, reading the danger in his posture. "Rebecca just got a phone call," Ghost said. "Male voice, no number. He described what Sarah was wearing today, down to the color of her hair ribbon." The temperature in the garage seemed to drop 20 degrees. "Where is she?" Tiny demanded. "At home with Rebecca. I've got 2 brothers on the house, but I'm sending reinforcements. Now!" Ghost's eyes found Danny. "This is about you. They're telling us they can get to my family if we don't back off." Danny felt like he'd been punched. "Then let me go. I'll leave Phoenix tonight. They'll stop targeting—" "Shut up!" Ghost's voice cracked like a whip. "You're not going anywhere. Hammer, take 6 to my house. Tiny, get Danny inside the clubhouse, back room. Preacher, call church. I'm making some calls of my own." Danny wanted to argue, but Tiny's massive hand was already on his shoulder, propelling him toward the clubhouse. Behind them, Danny heard Ghost on the phone, his voice hard as iron. "Bull, it's Ghost. I need to call in the charter. Full mobilization. They threatened my daughter." Inside the clubhouse, Tiny locked Danny in the back room that had become his safe space. Through the door, Danny heard more phone calls, motorcycles starting up, the controlled chaos of men preparing for war. He sat on his bed, head in his hands, fighting the urge to run. Everything Ghost had given him, everything the club had offered, he was destroying it just by existing. Sarah was in danger because Danny had saved her. The logic was sick and twisted and made him want to put his fist through the wall. The door opened. Ghost stood there, his expression unreadable. "On your feet." Danny stood. "Come with me." They walked through the clubhouse to the main room where members were gathering, but these weren't just Phoenix brothers. Danny saw patches from other chapters: Tucson, Flagstaff, Mesa, Scottsdale. The room was filling with hellsangels from across Arizona, all converging on Phoenix. "How many?" Danny whispered. 97 by the time everyone arrives, Ghost said. "Every brother in Arizona who can ride. They're coming because I asked, because one of ours is threatened." "I'm not. You saved my daughter. You're writing testimony that'll take down a trafficking ring. You've shown more courage in 2 weeks than most men show in a lifetime. Yeah, kid, you're one of ours." A massive biker Danny didn't recognize approached, his patch reading Tucson and President. This had to be Bull, the man who'd saved Ghost all those years ago. "This the kid?" Bull's voice was like gravel in a blender, but his eyes were kind. "This is Danny," Ghost confirmed. Bull studied Danny for a long moment. "Heard you took a knife for Ghost's girl. Heard you've been living rough for 2 years and still found it in you to be a hero. That true?" "I just did what anyone would." "What anyone should do, maybe. But most don't." Bull's hand landed on Danny's shoulder, the same gesture Ghost often used. "You remind me of someone. Skinny kid I found eating out of a dumpster in Tucson about 30 years ago. Stubborn as hell. Convinced he didn't deserve help. Know what happened to that kid?" Danny looked at Ghost, understanding dawning. "He became the best damn president Phoenix ever had," Bull finished. "So when Ghost called and said family was threatened, I didn't hesitate. None of us did. More introductions followed in rapid succession. Snake from Flagstaff, a wiry man with intelligent eyes and a firm handshake. Reaper from Mesa, older than the others, with gray in his beard and scars on his knuckles. Gunner from Scottsdale, youngest of the presidents, maybe 40, with the careful precision of former military. "War Council in 10 minutes, Ghost announced to the room. "Presidents and officers only. Everyone else, secure the perimeter and wait for orders." Danny started to leave, but Ghost caught his arm. "You're sitting in. You're the reason we're here. You deserve to hear the plan." The War Council gathered around a table in the back room. 5 chapter presidents, their sergeants at arms, and Danny, who felt completely out of place among these dangerous men. Ghost laid out the situation with brutal efficiency. The trafficking ring, Vincent Mora, the threat against Sarah, the FBI's slow-moving investigation. "So what's the play?" Reaper asked. "We can't touch Mora directly without bringing heat on the clubs, but we can't sit here and wait for him to make a move on an 8-year-old girl." "Torres suggested protective relocation for my family," Ghost said, his jaw tight. "Move Rebecca and Sarah to a safe house until Mora's caught." "That could take months," Snake pointed out. "And this kid," he nodded at Danny, "he's still exposed, still a target." Bull leaned back in his chair. "We need to draw Mora out. Make him come to us on our terms, with the FBI ready to grab him." "Using what as bait?" Gunner asked. Every eye turned to Danny. "No." Ghost's voice was absolute. "We're not dangling a 17-year-old kid in front of a killer." "What if I volunteer?" Danny heard himself say. "No." "Ghost, listen." "I said no, and that's final." Danny stood up, his good hand pressed flat on the table. "With respect, sir, it's not final, because it's my life." "These people want me dead." "Fine, let them try. But let them try when you're ready for them, with Torres and the FBI backing you up. I can be the bait, because I'm already the target." "Kid's got a point," Snake said quietly. "Kid's got a death wish," Ghost shot back. "There's a difference." Bull raised his hand, silencing the room. "Danny, why would you volunteer for this?" Danny met the old biker's eyes. "Because Sarah drew me a picture where I'm wearing a cape. Because Tiny calls me little man and doesn't mean it as an insult. Because Rebecca bought me notebooks and Doc checks my shoulder every day and Preacher's teaching me algebra even though I'm terrible at it. Because Ghost looks at me like I'm worth saving." His voice cracked. "I've never had that before. Never had people who gave a damn if I lived or died. So if there's a way to end this threat to them, to all of you, I'll do it. Even if it's dangerous. Especially if it's dangerous." "Because that's what family does, right? They protect each other." The silence that followed was heavy with emotion. Gunner spoke first. "The kid's got balls, I'll give him that." "Balls don't stop bullets," Ghost said, but his voice had lost some of its edge. "No, but proper planning does." Reaper pulled out a map of Phoenix. "If we're doing this, we do it smart. Controlled environment, multiple escape routes, overwhelming force. The kid's never alone, never actually at risk, but Mora thinks he is." Torres arrived 20 minutes later, called in by Ghost. When they explained the plan, her face went through several expressions before settling on reluctant acceptance. "This is insane," she said. "But it could work," Danny pressed. "You said the FBI needs Mora to make a move. Let me give him one." Torres looked at Ghost. "If I sign off on this, if anything happens to this kid—" "It won't," Ghost said flatly. "We'll have 97 brothers on Overwatch, FBI tactical teams in position, and me personally keeping him alive. Mora won't get within 50 feet of him." "He better not." Torres pulled out her phone. I need to clear this with my supervisor, and Danny needs tactical training. If you're doing this, you're doing it right. Over the next 3 days, Danny got a crash course in being bait. FBI agents taught him how to wear a wire. Ghost showed him escape routes and defensive positions. Tiny drilled him on hand signals and emergency protocols. The entire plan was choreographed like a military operation, with Danny at the center. Sarah visited once during the preparation, escorted by 4 brothers and Rebecca. She threw her arms around Danny's waist. "Daddy says you're doing something brave and dangerous," she said, her voice muffled against his shirt. "I told him you're the bravest person I know, so you'll be fine." Danny's throat went tight. "I'll be careful, I promise." "You better be. We're supposed to watch a movie next Sunday, and I already picked one out." Rebecca pulled Sarah back gently, but her eyes held Danny's. "You come back to us, understand? You're not allowed to be a hero and then disappear." "Yes, ma'am." The trap was set for Saturday at Encanto Park, a public space with open sightlines and multiple entry points. Finally, would appear to be alone, studying at a picnic table, while 97 Hells Angels and 2 FBI tactical teams surrounded the area in concealment. Friday night, Danny couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed at the clubhouse, listening to the rumble of motorcycles as brothers from across Arizona settled in for the night. Some were sleeping in the clubhouse, others in hotels nearby, all ready to move at first light. Around midnight, his door opened quietly. Ghost slipped in, sat in the chair by the window. "Can't sleep either?" Danny asked. "Haven't slept properly in 3 days." Ghost rubbed his face. "Keep thinking about all the ways this could go wrong." "We don't have to do this. I could just disappear." "Stop. Just stop." Ghost leaned forward. "Danny, I need you to understand something. When I found you bleeding on that street, when I brought you here, it wasn't charity. It was recognition. I saw myself in you. That same fear, that same belief that you're not worth saving. And I made a decision that day that I was going to prove you wrong. That's not charity. That's personal." Danny's eyes burned. "What if I let you down?" "You won't." "But what if—" "Then you let me down, and I'll still be here. That's what you don't get yet. There's no test you have to pass, no trial period where we're deciding if you're good enough. You're already in. You're already family. Tomorrow doesn't change that, even if something goes wrong. Especially if something goes wrong." Ghost stood, moved to the door. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "Ghost?" The man paused in the doorway. "Thank you. For everything." Ghost's smile was tired but genuine. "Thank me by staying alive, kid. That's all I ask." Saturday morning broke cold and clear. Danny dressed in the clothes Torres had provided, jeans, a hoodie, and a jacket with a hidden wire sewn into the lining. He ate breakfast with the club members, their casual conversation belying the tension underneath. At 9 a.m., the convoy moved out. 97 motorcycles rolling through Phoenix, splitting off in groups to take positions around Encanto Park. FBI teams were already in place, invisible to casual observers. Torres rode with Ghost, coordinating final details. Danny arrived at the park at 10 a.m., escorted by Tiny to the designated picnic table. Books and notebooks were spread out in front of him, creating the illusion of a teenager studying alone. "You good?" Tiny asked, adjusting Danny's wire one last time. "Terrified, but functional." "That's honest. I like it." Tiny's massive hand squeezed Danny's shoulder. "We're all around you. Ghost is in that white van 50 yards north. I'm in the maintenance shed to your east. You see anything wrong, any feeling at all, you use the panic word. Thunderbird. That's right." "You say that word, We're on you in seconds." Tiny's eyes were serious. "You're not alone, little man. Not today. Not ever." Tiny walked away, and Danny was alone at the picnic table. He opened a textbook, tried to focus on the words, but his heart was hammering so hard he could barely breathe. Minutes crawled by. Families walked past with children. Joggers followed the paths. Everything looked normal, peaceful, completely wrong for an ambush. Danny's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Smart kid would leave town." His hands shook as he typed back, following the script Torres had provided. "Can't run forever." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Then you'll die here." Danny's mouth went dry. He forced himself to keep looking at the textbook, to appear unaware of the threat closing in. Across the park, he caught a glimpse of movement near the parking lot. A figure in dark clothes, watching him. Finally's instinct screams to run, but he stayed frozen at the table. The figure started walking toward him. Danny's hand moved to his phone, ready to text the panic word, but Ghost's voice came through the earbud hidden in his ear. "Stand down. That's not Mora. Plainclothes officer confirming position. Stay calm." The figure walked past without a glance, and Danny's racing heart didn't slow. Another hour passed. The sun climbed higher. Danny's hands cramped from gripping his pen too tight. He was starting to think Mora wouldn't show, that this entire operation was for nothing. Then a black Mercedes with tinted windows pulled into the parking lot. "We got a possible," Ghost's voice said in Danny's ear. "Mercedes, Arizona plates Charlie Delta 7429. Running it now." Danny kept his eyes on his textbook, but every nerve was screaming. The Mercedes parked 60 feet away. The driver didn't get out. "Registered to a shell company," Torres's voice cut in. "Could be our guy. Danny, stay exactly where you are. Don't react, don't run. We need confirmation before we move." The Mercedes door opened. A man got out. Medium height, dark hair, expensive suit. He lit a cigarette, leaned against the car, and stared directly at Danny. "That's him," Torres confirmed. "That's Vincent Mora. All units, prepare to move on my signal." Mora started walking toward Danny, his movements casual but purposeful. He was 50 feet away. 45. 40. Danny's entire body wanted to bolt, but he forced himself to stay seated, to keep his eyes on the book, even though the words had become meaningless. 35 feet. 30. "Almost there," Ghost murmured. "Just a little closer. We need him to make clear intent." 25 feet. Mora's hand went into his jacket. Danny saw the gun before anyone else did, saw it coming out in what felt like slow motion. "Gun!" Danny shouted, throwing himself sideways off the bench. The world exploded into motion. 97 Hell's Angels descended on the park from every direction. FBI tactical teams swarmed from concealed positions. Mora spun, bringing the gun up, but he was surrounded in seconds. "Drop the weapon! Federal agents!" Mora's eyes went wide with shock and fury. He'd walked into a perfect trap. His gun clattered to the ground as 5 agents tackled him, driving him face first into the grass. Danny stayed down behind the picnic table, his breath coming in gasps. Tiny appeared beside him, pulling him to his feet. "You okay? You hurt?" I'm fine. Did they get him?" "They got him." Tiny's grin was fierce. "You did good, little man. Real good." Ghost jogged over, his face tight with controlled emotion. "Stupid move shouting like that. Could have gotten yourself shot." "Better than staying still and definitely getting shot." Ghost's hand landed on Danny's head, ruffling his hair roughly. "Fair point. Come on, Torres needs your statement while everything's fresh." The next 2 hours were a blur of statements, photographs, and paperwork. Danny sat in Torres's FBI vehicle, recounting everything while she recorded it. Maura was already in federal custody, facing multiple charges including attempted murder of a witness. "The trafficking ring's done," Torres said, satisfaction in her voice. "Maura was our last major target. With him in custody and your testimony, we can dismantle the entire operation. You helped save a lot of lives today, Danny." "I just didn't want Sarah to be in danger anymore." "Well, she's not. None of you are." Torres closed her notebook. "You're free to go home." Home. The word hit Danny strange. 2 weeks ago, home was an alley behind a dumpster. Now it was a clubhouse full of dangerous men who'd just proven they'd go to war for him. Outside the vehicle, the hellsangels were celebrating, 97 strong, united in victory. Danny stepped out and was immediately swallowed by backslaps and congratulations. Bull found him in the crowd. "You did good today, kid. Showed real courage standing there when every instinct said run." "I was terrified." "Courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway." Bull's hand gripped Danny's shoulder. "You're gonna be all right, Danny Mitchell. You got what it takes." Ghost appeared through the crowd, Rebecca and Sarah with him. Sarah launched herself at Danny, nearly knocking him over. "You're safe. You're really safe. The bad man's gone." "Yeah, sweetheart. He's gone." Rebecca hugged him next, fierce and tight. "Don't ever scare me like that again. When I saw you on the news..." "It's on the news already?" "Local station caught the whole thing on camera. You're gonna be famous." Danny's stomach dropped. Famous was the opposite of what he wanted, but Ghost caught his expression and laughed. "Relax. Torres already handled it. Your identity's protected as a minor witness. The story's about the FBI takedown, not about you." "Thank God." The convoy rode back to the Phoenix clubhouse, 97 motorcycles strong, with Danny riding behind Ghost and feeling like he was part of something bigger than himself. The rumble of engines, the solidarity of the formation, the knowledge that every single one of these men had dropped everything to protect him. It was overwhelming. At the clubhouse, someone had set up a barbecue. Music played, beer flowed. It felt like a party, like a homecoming, like family. Danny stood on the edge of it all, watching, still not quite believing this was his life now. Preacher approached, handed him a soda. "You look shell-shocked." "I feel shell-shocked. This morning I was bait in a federal operation. Tonight I'm at a barbecue with 97 Hell's Angels celebrating." "Life comes at you fast when you're doing it right," Preacher smiled. "You know what the beautiful thing is about today?" "What?" "You didn't just survive. You helped take down an entire trafficking operation. Those notebooks you filled, that testimony you're going to give, that's going to free dozens of victims, maybe hundreds when the FBI traces all the connections. You turned your pain, your time on the streets, into something that matters. That's redemption, Danny. That's purpose." Danny's eyes found Ghost across the yard, the man who'd saved him. Found Tiny, who called him Little Man with affection instead of mockery. Found Doc, who checked his healing shoulder. Found all these men who'd become brothers. "I don't know how to repay this," Danny said quietly. "You don't repay family. You pay it forward. Someday, when you're on your feet, you'll find some other lost kid who needs help. And you'll remember what it felt like to be saved. That's how this works." Sarah appeared at Danny's elbow, tugging his sleeve. "Come on, Daddy's gonna let me pick the music, and I need you to help me choose between Taylor Swift and..." "Absolutely not Taylor Swift," several bikers groaned in unison. Sarah giggled, pulling Danny toward the sound system, and he let himself be pulled. Let himself be part of this chaotic, loving, protective family. Later that night, when most of the visiting brothers had headed back to their chapters and the clubhouse had quieted down, Danny sat outside with Ghost, looking at the stars. "What happens now?" Danny asked. "Now you heal. You testify when the trial comes. You get your GED. You figure out what you want your life to look like." Ghost glanced at him. "What do you want it to look like?" Danny thought about it. Really thought about it for the first time in years. "I want to help people. Kids like me who fell through the cracks. I want to make sure they don't have to live behind dumpsters. That they know someone gives a damn." "Social work?" "Maybe. I don't know yet, but something like that." Ghost nodded slowly. "Then we'll make it happen. College, training, whatever you need. The club supports members getting education, getting careers. You're no different. I'm not a member. Not yet. You're too young to prospect. But when you turn 18, Ghost's smile was knowing. "We'll see, if you want it." Danny looked at the hellsangels patch on Ghost's vest, thought about what it would mean to wear one, thought about belonging to something bigger than himself. "I think I might want it," he admitted. "Good, because we want you too." Ghost stood, stretched. "Get some sleep, kid. Tomorrow, Rebecca's making that pot roast she promised you. Fair warning, she'll try to feed you until you explode. It's how she shows love." "I can handle that." Ghost paused at the door. "Danny, I'm proud of you. What you did today took guts, real guts. Your mom would be proud too." Danny's throat closed. "You think?" "I know, because any woman who raised a son brave enough to take a knife for a stranger, brave enough to face down a killer, brave enough to accept help when he needed it most, that's a damn good mother. And her legacy lives on in you." After Ghost left, Danny sat alone under the stars for a long time, thinking about his mother, thinking about the journey from that alley behind Chen's Market to this moment, thinking about how one act of courage had changed everything. His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Can't wait for movie night tomorrow. I picked The Princess Bride. Tiny says you'll love it." Danny smiled and texted back, "Can't wait." And he meant it. For the first time in 2 years, Danny Mitchell wasn't just surviving. He was living. He had a future, a family, a purpose. He had hope. And tomorrow, he'd start building the rest of his life. One day, one moment, one act of courage at a time, just like he'd learned from the 97 brothers who'd shown him what family really meant. 3 months after Vincent Mora's arrest, Danny stood in a courtroom wearing a suit Rebecca had bought him, his hands shaking despite Ghost's steady presence beside him. The gallery was packed with Hell's Angels, at least 40 brothers from Phoenix and Tucson chapters, their leather vests replaced with button-down shirts for court, but their solidarity unmistakable. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Valdez, gave Danny an encouraging nod as he approached the witness stand. He'd practiced this testimony for weeks with Torres, but nothing prepared him for the weight of Mora's glare from the defense table. "State your name for the record," the clerk said. "Daniel James Mitchell." "And how old are you, Daniel?" 18 as of last week. The timing wasn't coincidental. Torres and Valdez had coordinated the trial date to fall after Danny's birthday, giving him legal adult status and strengthening his testimony. Ghost had thrown him a birthday party at the clubhouse, his first real birthday celebration since his mother died. Sarah had made him a cake that was more frosting than actual cake, and the club had presented him with a leather jacket. Not a vest with patches, he wasn't a member yet, but a quality jacket that said he belonged. Valdez approached the witness stand, her expression professional but kind. "Danny, can you tell the court what you witnessed on the afternoon of June 15th? Danny took a breath and started talking. He described the kidnapping attempt on Sarah, the 3 men, the van. He described throwing himself at armed criminals without hesitation, the knife wound, Ghost's intervention. "And why did you intervene?" Valdez asked. "You didn't know this child. You had no obligation to help." "Because she was scared," Danny said simply. "And I know what it's like to be scared and have nobody help. I couldn't let that happen to her." Mora's defense attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit, tried to discredit Danny during cross-examination. "Isn't it true, Mr. Mitchell, that you were homeless at the time, living on the streets with no fixed address?" "Yes, sir." "And isn't it also true that you have a history with foster care? Multiple placements? Behavioral issues?" Ghost tensed beside Danny in the gallery, but Danny kept his voice steady. "I was in 5 foster homes between ages 8 and 15. I left the last one because the foster father was physically abusive. I reported it to my caseworker, but nothing was done. So I chose the streets over getting hit. I don't consider that a behavioral issue. I consider that survival." A murmur went through the courtroom. The defense attorney's face reddened. "Isn't it possible," the lawyer pressed, "that you inserted yourself into this situation seeking attention? That you exaggerated the danger for personal gain?" Danny's hand went to his shoulder, where the scar from the knife wound was still visible. "I got stabbed protecting that little girl. I spent 2 weeks under FBI protection because the trafficking ring wanted me dead. I've testified about operations I witnessed that helped free 47 victims. What exactly did I gain except a permanent scar and nightmares?" "Objection!" the defense attorney shouted. "Non-responsive." "I'll allow it," the judge said dryly. "The witness is answering the implication of your question, counselor. Perhaps phrase it more carefully next time." When Danny finally stepped down from the witness stand 2 hours later, his shirt was soaked with sweat, and his hands were trembling. But he'd done it. He'd told the truth, stayed calm under attack, and given testimony that Valdez later said was the strongest she'd heard in 20 years of prosecution. Ghost met him in the hallway, pulled him into a brief, hard hug. "You did good in there. Real good." "I wanted to punch that lawyer." "We all did. But you kept your cool, answered with facts, and made him look like an ass. That's better than punching him." Torres appeared, her expression triumphant. "The jury loved you. Absolutely loved you. Between your testimony and the physical evidence from the warehouse raids, Mora's going away for life. Multiple life sentences, actually." "What about the others? The rest of the ring?" 13 arrests so far, more coming. We've identified operations in 4 states. Your testimony connected dots we couldn't connect before." Torres's hand squeezed his shoulder. "You helped save a lot of lives, Danny. I hope you understand that." Danny nodded, not trusting his voice. Behind Torres, he saw other witnesses being escorted out. Young women, some barely older than him, who'd been rescued from the trafficking operation. One of them, a girl maybe 16 with haunted eyes, caught his gaze and mouthed, "Thank you." His throat closed up completely. The trial lasted another week, but Danny only had to testify once. He spent the rest of the time focusing on what Ghost called building his life, which mostly meant studying for his GED and working in the garage. He passed the GED exam 3 days after the trial concluded, scoring in the 98th percentile. Preacher had helped him prepare, and the old chaplain's face when he saw the scores was worth every late night of studying. 98th percentile, Preacher said, shaking his head in amazement. "Kid, you could have gone to college straight from high school if the system hadn't failed you." "Better late than never, right?" "Damn right." Preacher handed him an envelope. "This came for you yesterday. Didn't want to distract you before your test." Danny opened it to find an acceptance letter from Phoenix Community College, and information about their social work program. He stared at it, not quite believing what he was reading. I didn't apply to any colleges. Ghost did. Well, Rebecca did most of the paperwork, but Ghost provided the recommendation letter. Apparently, the president of the Phoenix Hellsangels carries some weight when he vouches for someone. Preacher's smile was knowing. You start in the fall semester. Tuition's covered by a scholarship the club set up years ago for members and their families pursuing education. I'm not a member. Your family. That's close enough. Danny's hands shook, holding the acceptance letter. College. Him. The kid who'd lived behind a dumpster 6 months ago was going to college. I don't know what to say. Say you'll work hard and make us proud. That's all Ghost wants. That's all any of us want. That night, Rebecca insisted on celebrating both the GED and the college acceptance with a family dinner at their house. Danny arrived to find the table loaded with food: pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade rolls, and a chocolate cake Sarah had helped make. This is too much, Danny protested. This is exactly right, Rebecca countered, pulling out a chair for him. You're going to college, Danny. That's a big deal. We're celebrating. Sarah climbed into the seat next to him, chattering about her upcoming summer camp and the friends she'd invited to her birthday party next month. She'd healed remarkably well from the kidnapping attempt, aided by therapy and the knowledge that the men who'd targeted her were in prison. She still had nightmares sometimes, but she was resilient in the way only children could be. You'll come to my party, right? Sarah asked, her eyes wide and hopeful. I already told everyone my hero's gonna be there. Sarah, Danny might have other plans, Rebecca started. I'll be there, Danny interrupted. Wouldn't miss it. Sarah's grin could have lit up Phoenix. After dinner, while Sarah was in her room playing, Ghost pulled Danny aside to the back porch. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the desert evening cooling around them. Got something for you, Ghost said, pulling out a manila envelope. Been waiting for the right time. Danny opened it to find legal documents, pages and pages of forms with official seals and signatures. What is this? Adoption papers, if you want them. Ghost's voice was carefully neutral. Rebecca and I talked about it. We'd like to officially adopt you, make you a Reynolds legally, not just in spirit. But it's your choice. No pressure either way. Danny's vision blurred. He blinked hard, trying to read the documents through tears. You want to adopt me? We want you to be our son. Legally. Officially. Sarah's already been calling you her brother for months. Might as well make it real. Ghost cleared his throat. But, like I said, no pressure. You're 18 now, an adult. You can make your own decisions. We'll support you either way. Why? Danny's voice cracked. I'm 18. I can take care of myself now. You've already done so much. Because you're family. And family's not something you age out of. Ghost's hand landed on Danny's shoulder. Because when I look at you, I see the kid I used to be. And I see the man you're becoming. And I'm proud as hell to call you my son. Because Rebecca loves you like you're hers. Because Sarah worships the ground you walk on. Because this. He gestured at the house, the life they'd built. This is what family looks like. And we want you in it. Permanently. Danny couldn't speak. He clutched the adoption papers like they might disappear, tears streaming down his face unchecked. Ghost pulled him into a hug, and Danny finally let himself break down completely, sobbing into Ghost's shoulder all the fear and grief and overwhelming gratitude he'd been holding in for months. It's okay, Ghost murmured. Let it out. You're safe. You're home. When Danny finally pulled himself together, his face blotchy and his eyes red, he managed to say, Yes, I want this. I want to be your son. Ghost's smile was pure joy. Then we'll file the paperwork this week. Welcome to the family, son. Officially. Rebecca appeared in the doorway, clearly having been listening. She wrapped both of them in a hug, and Sarah came running, not understanding what was happening, but knowing it was good. They stood there, 4 people who'd found each other against impossible odds, and Danny understood what home really meant. The adoption was finalized 6 weeks later in a quiet courthouse ceremony. Bull drove down from Tucson to witness it, along with Tiny, Preacher, and Doc. The judge who processed the paperwork commented that she'd never seen so many Hell's Angels in family court before. "First time for everything, Your Honor," Ghost said with a grin. When the judge declared Daniel James Mitchell was now legally Daniel James Reynolds, Sarah cheered so loud the bailiff jumped. Danny signed the papers with shaking hands, and when the judge said, "Congratulations, son," Ghost corrected her. "He's always been my son. This just makes it official." The clubhouse threw another party that night, but Danny found himself slipping outside during the celebration, needing a moment alone to process everything. He sat on the curb where Ghost's motorcycle was parked, looking at the stars and thinking about how far he'd come. His mother's photograph was in his wallet, carried everywhere. He pulled it out, studied her smiling face. "I got adopted, Mom," he whispered. "I have a family now, a real one. Ghost and Rebecca and Sarah, and about 100 uncles who all ride motorcycles and would probably terrify you, but they're good people. The best people." His voice cracked. "I wish you could meet them. I wish you could see who I'm becoming. I think you'd be proud." She would be. Danny turned to find Tiny settling onto the curb beside him, the big man moving with surprising grace. "Sorry, didn't mean to intrude on a private moment," Tiny said. "It's okay." Danny showed him the photograph. "My mom. She died when I was 15. Overdose." Tiny studied the picture with gentle eyes. "She looks like she was kind. You got her smile." "Yeah?" "Yeah. And little man, for what it's worth, I think she'd be incredibly proud. You survived things that would have broken most people. You kept your compassion, your courage, your honor. That's not luck. That's who she raised you to be." Danny's throat went tight again. "I miss her. Even with everything good that's happened, I still miss her." That's how love works. The missing doesn't go away just because new good things come along. You carry it with you. Let it shape you without defining you. Tiny's massive hand rested on Danny's shoulder. "Your mom gave you a foundation. Ghost and Rebecca are helping you build on it. Both things can be true." Inside the clubhouse, someone cranked up the music. Laughter and voices spilled out into the night. Danny's family, both his blood family in memory and his chosen family in present, surrounding him with love. "Come on," Tiny said, standing and offering Danny a hand up. "Bull wants to make a toast, and you know how he gets if people aren't paying attention." The toast turned into multiple toasts, each brother standing to share a story or a wish for Danny's future. Bull talked about finding Ghost in that Tucson alley 30 years ago. Preacher shared how education had changed his life after the military. Doc spoke about second chances and redemption. Hammer, surprisingly emotional after a few beers, talked about how proud he was to see Danny grow from a scared kid into a strong young man. When it was Ghost's turn, he raised his beer and looked directly at Danny. 6 months ago, my daughter was almost taken from me. A skinny homeless kid I didn't know threw himself in front of danger to save her. That kid became my son today, not because of blood or obligation, but because of choice. Because we chose each other. That's what family is. Choosing to show up. Choosing to fight for each other. Choosing love even when it's hard. Danny, you chose to save Sarah. We chose to save you. And now we're all better for it. To family, the one we're born into and the one we build. To family, the room echoed. Danny drank his soda and tried not to cry again, but Sarah climbed onto his lap and whispered, "You're my brother now, for real and forever." For real and forever, he agreed. The party wound down eventually, brothers heading home to their own families. Danny helped clean up, carrying trash bags to the dumpster behind the clubhouse, the same dumpster where he used to sleep, where he'd hidden from the world, where he'd believed he had no future. Now he stood there as Daniel Reynolds, adopted son, college student, survivor, and he marveled at the transformation. "Funny, isn't it?" Ghost said, appearing beside him. "How much can change in half a year? I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and it'll all be a dream." "It's real. All of it. The good, the hard, the future we're building together." Ghost looked at the dumpster, understanding the significance of the moment. "You're not that scared kid anymore, Danny. You grew into someone stronger." "I'm still scared sometimes." "Being scared is human. Letting it paralyze you is the problem. You never let fear stop you from doing what's right. That's character." Ghost turned to face him fully. "College starts in 6 weeks. You ready?" "Terrified and excited in equal measure." "Good answer. That means you care about succeeding." Ghost pulled out an envelope, handed it to Danny. "From the club, for books and supplies. Don't argue, just take it." Inside was $2,000 in cash. Danny's eyes went wide. "Ghost, this is too much. It's an investment in our future. You're going to be a social worker, going to help kids like you used to be. That's going to reflect well on this club, show people what we really stand for. So yeah, we're investing in your education. Deal with it." Danny couldn't argue with that logic. "Thank you. For everything. I don't say it enough, but thank you. You say it every day by showing up, working hard, being the man your mother raised you to be. That's thanks enough." Ghost's hand squeezed his shoulder. "Now come on, Rebecca made me promise to get you home at a reasonable hour. Something about you needing proper sleep now that you're a college student." Home. The word still felt foreign and familiar at once, but when Danny climbed into Ghost's truck and they drove to the Reynolds house, his house now, he let himself believe it was real. Sarah was already asleep when they arrived, but Rebecca had left a plate of cookies on the counter with a note. "For my brilliant college-bound son, proud of you. Love, Mom." Danny read that note 5 times, his eyes stinging. Mom. Rebecca had signed it Mom. And it felt right, felt true, felt like permission to let her fill that role his mother's death had left empty. He went to bed in his room, the guest room that was officially his now, decorated with posters Sarah had helped him pick out, and a desk for studying, and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through messages from brothers congratulating him on the adoption, from Torres saying how proud she was, from community college sending welcome information. His last message was from a number he didn't recognize. "Saw the news about Mora's conviction. Thank you for being brave enough to testify. You saved my life. Maria." Maria, one of the rescued trafficking victims. She'd stayed in Phoenix, was working with Torres on a victims advocacy program. They'd crossed paths a few times, brief conversations that always left Danny feeling like he'd done something meaningful. He typed back, "You saved yourself by being strong enough to survive. I just helped open the door. Proud of you." Her response came quickly. "Still, thank you. People like you give people like me hope." Danny set his phone down and stared at the ceiling, processing that statement. People like him gave hope. The homeless kid who'd lived behind a dumpster was now someone who gave hope to others. The irony wasn't lost on him. Neither was the responsibility. If his story, his survival, his choices could help other people find their way out of darkness, then every hard moment had been worth it. He fell asleep thinking about his future: college, social work, helping kids who'd been forgotten by the system. Fell asleep in a real bed, in a real home, with a real family who loved him. And for the first time in 6 years, Danny Mitchell Reynolds didn't have nightmares. He had dreams instead. Dreams of a future he was building, one choice at a time. Outside his window, Ghost's motorcycle sat in the driveway next to Rebecca's car, both vehicles symbols of the life he'd been welcomed into. Inside the house, his family slept safely, protected by love and loyalty, and the knowledge that they'd fight for each other no matter what. This was home. This was family. This was the beginning of everything Danny had thought he'd lost forever. And tomorrow, he'd wake up and keep building on it. Keep choosing courage over fear, hope over despair, connection over isolation. Because that's what his mother would have wanted. That's what Ghost and Rebecca had taught him. That's what the 97 brothers who'd ridden to his defense had shown him. Family wasn't about blood. It was about showing up. And Danny Reynolds was done running. He was home. Finally, truly, completely home. 5 years later, Danny stood in front of a rundown building on the east side of Phoenix, holding architectural plans in one hand and his phone in the other. The structure had been a warehouse once, then abandoned for a decade, and now it was about to become something else entirely. "You're sure about this location?" Ghost asked, standing beside him in the morning sun. The man had more gray in his beard now, a few more lines around his eyes, but he was still solid as granite. "Positive. It's 2 blocks from where I used to sleep. Kids living rough know this area. Trust it. And it's big enough for what we need." Danny scrolled through his phone, showing Ghost the budget projections. 12 beds, common area, kitchen, counseling offices, and a classroom for GED prep. We can house up to 15 kids aged 16 to 21 at a time. "And you got the funding secured?" "Community grants, private donations, and the club's nonprofit contribution. Plus, Maria's Victims Advocacy Group is partnering with us for trauma counseling." Danny's voice held quiet pride. "We're calling it Second Chance House." Ghost's hand landed on Danny's shoulder, the gesture familiar and grounding. "Your mom would be proud, son. Hell, I'm proud. 23 years old and you're opening a transitional home for homeless youth. Couldn't have done it without you. Any of it." Danny turned to face his father fully. 5 years ago, I was living behind a dumpster. Now I've got my bachelor's in social work, a job with the state, and I'm opening this place. That's all because you didn't walk past me bleeding on that street. You saved Sarah first. I just returned the favor. You did a hell of a lot more than return a favor. Danny's throat tightened the way it still did sometimes when he thought about how different his life could have been. You gave me a family, a future, a reason to believe I mattered. Ghost pulled him into a brief hug, the kind men shared when words weren't enough. You always mattered, Danny. You just needed someone to show you. A truck pulled up and Tiny climbed out, followed by Hammer, Preacher, and Doc. The core Phoenix brothers, older now, but no less committed. Behind them came more trucks carrying lumber, tools, and supplies. Heard somebody needs a building renovated, Tiny called out, his grin massive. Figured we'd volunteer our services. You don't have to, Danny started. Kid, when are you gonna learn? Hammer interrupted, pulling on work gloves. Family helps family. Besides, Preacher's been bored since he retired. This will give him something to do besides lecture us about cholesterol. My cholesterol lectures are keeping you alive, Preacher retorted, but he was smiling. Come on, let's see these plans. I did construction before I joined the military. I can tell you if this design is sound." The morning dissolved into organized chaos as Hell's Angels from 3 chapters descended on the building. Bull had driven up from Tucson with a crew. Snake brought brothers from Flagstaff. Even some of the younger members Danny had watched prospect and patch in over the years showed up, ready to work. Sarah arrived around noon, now 13 and terrifyingly mature for her age. She carried boxes of sandwiches Rebecca had made, and a determined expression Danny recognized. "Mom says you need to eat, and you'll probably forget if someone doesn't make you," Sarah announced, setting up an impromptu lunch station. "Also, I'm volunteering here once you open. I already cleared it with Mom and Dad." "Sarah, you're 13. You should be worried about school and friends, not helping homeless kids." "Why, because I'm too young to understand?" Her eyes flashed with the same fire Rebecca had. "Danny, you saved my life when you were 17. I'm not too young to help save someone else's." She had him there. Danny looked to Ghost for backup, but his father just shrugged. "She's got your stubbornness, son. Wonder where she got that from." "I hate you both," Danny said without heat. "No, you don't," Sarah replied cheerfully, handing him a sandwich. "Eat. You're too skinny. Mom said so." The renovation took 3 months of weekends and evenings, with club members and community volunteers working alongside professional contractors Danny had hired. The building transformed from abandoned warehouse to safe haven, each room taking shape with purpose and care. Danny worked alongside everyone, his social work degree making him valuable in designing spaces that would actually help traumatized kids heal. He insisted on private rooms instead of dormitory-style sleeping, knowing from experience that safety meant having a door you could lock. He pushed for a large kitchen where residents could learn to cook together, build community through shared meals. He fought for a library, remembering all those hours he'd spent in the public library, just to have somewhere warm and quiet to exist. Maria became the program's trauma counselor, her own journey from victim to advocate, making her uniquely qualified to help others. At 21, she was fierce and compassionate in equal measure, and she understood what these kids would need in ways textbooks couldn't teach. "We need to make it clear from day one," Maria said during a planning meeting, "that this isn't a place with a time limit. Kids age out of foster care at 18, and suddenly they're on their own. We need to let them stay until they're actually ready to leave, not until some arbitrary deadline says so." "Agreed," Danny said, making notes. "We'll have a 2-year maximum stay, but with flexibility for individual circumstances. The goal is stability, not just temporary shelter." Torres, now a lieutenant with the FBI's trafficking division, stopped by one afternoon with unexpected news. She found Danny in what would become the counseling office, painting walls a soft blue color Maria had insisted was calming. "Got something to show you," Torres said, pulling out her tablet. "Remember how your testimony helped us dismantle that trafficking ring 5 years ago?" "Hard to forget." "Well, we've been tracking the long-term impact. Your testimony directly led to the rescue and recovery of 47 victims initially, but those cases opened up 17 more investigations across 6 states. Total count as of today? 233 victims freed, 12 major trafficking operations shut down, and 68 arrests. All because you were brave enough to speak up." Danny's paintbrush froze mid-stroke. 233 people? 233 lives changed. Most of them kids not much younger than you were. Torres's smile was genuine. "And now you're opening this place to help even more." "You're a damn hero, Danny Reynolds. I hope you know that. I'm just trying to pay forward what was given to me. That's what makes you a hero. You could have taken your second chance and disappeared into a normal life. Instead, you're using it to create second chances for others." Torres squeezed his shoulder. "Your mom would be incredibly proud." After she left, Danny sat alone in the half-painted office, trying to process the magnitude of what he'd helped set in motion. 233 people. That number was staggering, almost incomprehensible. But it was also deeply personal. Each number represented a life, a story, a person who'd been given a chance to escape horror. He pulled out his phone and called the one person who always understood these moments. Ghost answered on the first ring.
What's wrong?
Nothing's wrong. Torres was here. She said my testimony helped rescue over 200 people in the past 5 years. Silence on the other end, then Ghost's voice, thick with emotion. Jesus, son, that's incredible. I didn't do it alone. You protected me so I could testify. The club kept me safe. Maria and the other victims had the courage to speak up too. It was all of us. Maybe. But you were the catalyst. You threw yourself at danger to save Sarah, and that one act created a ripple effect that's still spreading. Ghost cleared his throat. This is why we do what we do, Danny. This is why the club exists. To protect people who need it, and create more protectors in the process. I'm opening this house to do the same thing. Create more survivors who become protectors. I know. And it's gonna work. Because you understand what these kids need in a way social services never will. You've lived it. The conversation stayed with Danny through the final weeks of renovation. He poured everything he'd learned from his own experience into creating a space that would actually help, not just house homeless youth. Opening day arrived on a crisp October morning. The building was transformed, warm and welcoming with donated furniture and fresh paint. The kitchen was stocked, the bedrooms were ready, the staff was trained, and Danny stood at the entrance with his family, waiting for the first residents to arrive. Rebecca fussed with his tie, the one she'd insisted he wear for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. You look so professional. My brilliant son, the social worker and program director. Mom, you're embarrassing me. But Danny was smiling. Sarah bounced on her toes beside him. How many kids are coming today? 6 initially. We're starting slow, making sure we can handle the caseload before we expand. Danny checked his watch. They should be here any minute. The van from social services pulled up right on time. Danny's colleague, a woman named Janet who specialized in youth services, stepped out first, followed by 6 teenagers ranging from 16 to 19. They looked wary, defensive, and heartbreakingly familiar. Danny saw himself in every single one of them. He stepped forward, keeping his posture open and non-threatening. Hey, I'm Danny Reynolds. This is Second Chance House, and you're safe here. I know you're scared. I know you don't trust this. I know you think it's going to be like every other placement that failed you. But I promise you, this is different. A girl, maybe 17, with hard eyes and defensive posture spoke up. Yeah? What makes you so sure? Danny pulled out his wallet, showed her the worn photograph of his mother. Because 5 years ago, I was living behind a dumpster on this same street. I was homeless, terrified, and convinced I was going to die in an alley somewhere. Then I saved a little girl from being kidnapped, and her father, he gestured to Ghost. He saved me right back, gave me a family, a home, a future. Everything you see here, this building, this program, this chance, it exists because someone gave me a chance when I had nothing. And now I'm paying it forward to you. The teenagers stared at him, processing this information. Another kid, skinny and pale, asked quietly, You were really homeless? For 2 years, ages 15 to 17. 5 foster homes before that. The last one so bad I chose the streets over staying. Danny met each of their eyes. I know what it's like to be hungry, cold, and invisible. I know what it's like when the system fails you. That's exactly why I built this place. Because you deserve better. All of you. The hard-eyed girl's defenses cracked slightly. What if we mess up? What if we can't follow the rules or we screw up somehow? You gonna kick us out like everyone else? The only way you leave before you're ready is if you choose to, or if you hurt someone else. Mistakes? You'll make them. We all do. But mistakes aren't grounds for abandonment. They're opportunities to learn and grow. Danny's voice was firm. This is your home for as long as you need it. That's a promise. Janet stepped forward. These kids have been briefed on the program rules and expectations. They have all agreed to participate in counseling, education, and life skills training. I'll check in weekly, but they're in your care now, Danny. We've got them, Danny assured her. After Janet left, Danny led the 6 teenagers inside, showed them the common area, the kitchen, the library. Tiny and Preacher were waiting inside, their presence both intimidating and oddly comforting. The kids' eyes went wide seeing the Hell's Angels patches.
This is Tiny and Preacher, Danny introduced them. They're part of the volunteer crew here. Tiny teaches auto mechanics in our vocational program. Preacher helps with GED prep. They're safe, I promise.
Used to be where you are, Tiny said to the group, his deep voice gentle. Foster care, streets, the whole mess. Found family in this club. Now I help kids find their way out of the dark. Same, Preacher added. Military, PTSD, nearly homeless myself before Ghost's father took me in 30 years ago. We're not here to judge you. We're here to help you build something better. The hard-eyed girl, her intake form said her name was Jessica, looked at Danny with new understanding.
You really mean this? All of it?
Every word. Now come on, let me show you to your rooms. You each get your own space with a door that locks from the inside. Your room, your rules, your privacy. As he led them upstairs, explaining the house rules and daily schedule, Danny caught Sarah watching from the doorway with tears in her eyes. She understood better than most what this moment meant, not just for these 6 kids, but for the hundreds who'd come after them. The first week was chaos as the residents adjusted and staff worked out the inevitable kinks in the program. But slowly, tentatively, the 6 teenagers started to believe this might actually be real. They attended counseling sessions with Maria. They started GED classes with Preacher. They learned to cook with Rebecca, who volunteered 3 days a week. They worked on cars with Tiny in the garage Ghost had helped set up behind the building. And they talked to Danny, who understood their trauma in ways no textbook could teach. Jessica opened up 2 weeks in, crying in Danny's office about the abuse she'd suffered in her last foster home.
Nobody believed me when I reported it.
They just moved me again, like I was the problem. I believe you, Danny said firmly. And that foster parent is being investigated. I've already contacted the authorities with your permission. What happened to you was wrong, and it's not your fault. You really were homeless? You're not just saying that to relate to us? Danny pulled out his phone, showed her a photo Ghost had taken 5 years ago. Danny at 17, skinny and bruised, standing in the clubhouse garage looking overwhelmed. That's me the week after Ghost took me in. I'd been living on the streets for 2 years. Thought I was gonna die out there. What changed? I saved someone, and they saved me back. And then I decided that if I got a second chance, I was gonna make it count. Gonna use it to help other people find their way out. Danny met her eyes. That's what you're gonna do too, Jessica. You're gonna survive this, grow from it, and someday you're gonna help someone else. That's how we break the cycle. 3 months into the program, Danny received a call from the state social services director requesting a meeting. He drove to the downtown office with Ghost, both of them prepared to defend the program if necessary. Instead, they found the director, a stern woman named Patricia Chen, smiling.
Mr. Reynolds, I've been reviewing Second Chance House's outcomes. In 3 months, you've served 6 residents with 0 incidents, 100% counseling attendance, and 4 of 6 enrolled in educational programs. Those are unprecedented numbers for this population.
She slid a folder across her desk. The state wants to expand your program. We're offering a contract to double your capacity and funding to hire more staff. Danny's hands shook as he opened the folder.
You want us to serve 12 kids instead of 6?
Initially, yes, with plans to expand further if outcomes remain strong. Mr. Reynolds, what you're doing works. You're reaching kids the system has failed, giving them real support and pathways to stability. We'd be fools not to invest in that. Ghost's hand landed on Danny's shoulder, pride evident in his grip. My son will need to review the contract, but we're very interested.
Of course, take your time. But Danny,
Patricia's expression softened.
I've been in this field for 30 years. I've seen countless programs come and go. What makes yours different is that you've lived it. These kids trust you because you understand them. Don't lose that as you grow. That authenticity is your greatest asset.
Danny nodded, not trusting his voice. The meeting concluded with handshakes and promises to connect soon. In the parking lot, Ghost pulled Danny into a hug. Proud of you doesn't even begin to cover it, son. You're changing the system from the inside.
We're changing it, Danny corrected. This only works because the club supports it. Because you taught me what family really means.
6 months later, Second Chance House was serving 12 residents with a waiting list of 20 more. Danny had hired 2 additional counselors and expanded programming to include job training and college prep. The success stories were mounting. 3 residents had earned their GEDs, 2 had found stable employment, and 1 had been accepted to community college. But the moment that hit Danny hardest came on a random Tuesday afternoon. He was in his office doing paperwork when Jessica knocked on the door. She'd been at the house for 8 months now, had transformed from defensive and angry to hopeful and engaged. She was enrolled in high school completion classes and working part-time at a coffee shop.
Got a minute?
She asked. Always. What's up?
Jessica sat down, her hands twisting in her lap. I've been thinking about what you said. About surviving and then helping others. About breaking the cycle.
Okay.
I want to be a social worker, like you.
I want to help kids who've been through what we've been through. She looked up, her eyes bright with determination.
I know I have to finish high school first, then college, and it's going to take years. But I want to do it. I want to be like you.
Danny's vision blurred. He remembered sitting in this same position 5 years ago, telling Ghost he wanted to help people. Remembered the overwhelming gratitude of having someone believe in his potential. You're already like me, Jessica. You're surviving. You're fighting. You're choosing hope over despair. The degree is just paperwork. The heart is already there.
You really think I can do it?
I know you can. And I'll help you every step of the way. That's a promise. After she left, Danny sat alone in his office, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. Jessica was going to be a social worker because he'd been a social worker. Because Ghost had saved him. Because he'd saved Sarah. The ripple effect Taurus had mentioned was real, tangible, and growing. That weekend, the club held its annual family barbecue. Danny brought all 12 Second Chance House residents, with permission from their caseworkers. He wanted them to see what healthy family looked like. Wanted them to experience the kind of community that had saved him. Sarah, now 14, immediately adopted 3 of the younger residents, showing them around and making introductions. Volse made sure everyone had more food than they could eat. Ghost held court at the grill, telling stories and making the kids laugh. And 97 Hells Angels from across Arizona showed up to welcome these forgotten kids into their extended family. Jessica stood beside Danny, watching the organized chaos.
This is what you meant. About family being choice, not blood.
Yeah. Every single person here chose this. chose to show up, chose to care. That's what makes it real. I want this someday. A family like this. You have it already. You're part of Second Chance House. You're part of this community. You're my little sister in all the ways that matter. Danny's arm wrapped around her shoulders. You're already home, Jessica. You just didn't realize it yet. Bull found Danny later in the evening, as the sun was setting and kids were toasting marshmallows around a fire pit. The old biker looked at Danny with the same expression Ghost had worn 5 years ago. Pride mixed with wonder. You know what you've done, kid? You took the gift Ghost gave you and multiplied it. Turned your second chance into dozens of second chances for others. That's legacy. That's impact. That's everything this club stands for. I'm just doing what you taught Ghost to do, what he taught me, paying it forward. That's exactly right. And someday, these kids you're helping, they're gonna help others. And it'll keep going, generation after generation. All because a skinny homeless kid decided to save a little girl in a unicorn shirt. Bull's hand gripped Danny's shoulder. Your mama would be so damn proud. And so would my father, the man who started this chapter. This is what we're about. Protection, family, creating more light in the world. Danny looked across the yard at his family. Ghost and Rebecca laughing together, Sarah teaching Jessica to roast the perfect marshmallow, Tiny showing a shy 16-year-old how to throw a football, Preacher deep in conversation with a resident about college applications. This was everything he'd dreamed of during those cold nights behind the dumpster. Everything he'd thought was impossible. Maria appeared at his elbow, her voice soft. Thank you for this, for all of it. I was one of the 47 you helped rescue. Now I'm helping rescue others. That's what you started, Danny. That's your legacy. Our legacy, Danny corrected. Everyone here played a part. Maybe, but you were the catalyst. You're still the catalyst. She smiled. Second Chance House is just the beginning, isn't it? You're gonna keep expanding, keep helping, keep creating more protectors. That's the plan. As long as there are kids who need help, I'll be here. As the evening wound down and families started heading home, Danny stood with Ghost watching the last embers of the fire pit fade. Sarah was asleep in Rebecca's lap. The Second Chance House residents were loading into the van, tired but smiling. You did good, son, Ghost said quietly. Really good. We did good. All of us together. Danny's voice was thick with emotion. 5 years ago, I was nobody. Now I'm somebody's hope. That's because of you. No, that's because of who you've always been. I just gave you the chance to show it. Ghost pulled Danny into a hug, the kind that said everything words couldn't. Love you, kid. Proud doesn't even begin to cover it. Love you too, Dad. They stood there in comfortable silence, father and son, bound not by blood, but by choice and love and mutual salvation. Around them, the clubhouse settled into quiet, the peace that came after a good day with family. Danny's phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. Thank you for today, for everything. I never knew family could feel like this. He typed back, This is just the beginning. We're building something beautiful together, all of us. Her response was immediate. Can't wait to see what we build next. Danny smiled and put his phone away. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility and purpose. More kids to help, more lives to change, more second chances to create and share. Because that's what they did. That's what family meant. That's what those 97 Hell's Angels had taught him when they'd ridden to his defense and shown him what unconditional protection looked like. You found the broken people, You protected them. You gave them tools to heal. And then you watched them become protectors themselves, creating an endless cycle of salvation and strength. That's what Ghost had done for him. That's what he was doing for Jessica and the others. That's what they'd all do for countless more in the years to come. One scared kid at a time. One second chance at a time. One family at a time. That was the legacy of the homeless boy who'd saved a biker's daughter and found himself saved in return by 97 brothers who'd shown him the true meaning of family. And it was a legacy that would echo forward for generations, creating light in dark places and hope where there'd been none before. Because love multiplies, protection ripples, and family, real family, never stops fighting for each other. That was the truth Danny Reynolds carried in his heart as he drove home that night, surrounded by the family he'd chosen and who'd chosen him right back. And it was a truth he'd spend the rest of his life proving to every forgotten kid who walked through Second Chance House's doors, looking for exactly what he'd found 5 years ago behind a grocery store in Phoenix. A reason to believe they mattered. A family who'd fight for them. And a future worth building together, one brave choice at a time.